Right, today what we're going to do is we're going to make up a couple of pole rigs. There's a few things that I'm going to use for these. So, pole floats of various sizes, Preston Innovations Power Reflow, pole float silicone, again 2 different sizes. We have our hook lengths, Browning Sinex line, Stotts, just to shot down the float, and our Dinsmore's pole float weights. This idea is a various, obviously it's got 4-pound hook lengths on it, but the various strengths and various lengths. That's what we are going to use today to make a couple of rigs. What we're going to do is we're going to show you how to attach your rig to a Dacron connector. So I'll get onto that now. That'll be the first step. I'll show you here. So, got your line there. Okay. So the idea behind this is make a loop. You can see there. And then you tie your loop off. Like so. And you just pull that tight. Give it a bit of wet. Right down. And give it a good pull. Okay. So now you've got one loop. Okay. So you take your finger at the loop. You pull it down an inch. Get hold of that. Then you put another loop in. And this will be explained in a minute. I will demonstrate exactly why we do 2 loops. Okay, so that's your second loop. So now on that piece of line you have 2 loops. You can see there. Okay, so you can see it's all a lot better now. The black background. So we've got your 2 loops. Okay, now the loop where my finger and thumb is would be the loop you'll use to undo your rig from your Dacron. Now the middle loop, this one here, that is what you are going to use to attach your Dacron connector to your rig. So the idea of this is the loose line left over, which is the one here. We basically, again, as if you're going to make another loop. So you get like that. Okay. Then you hold the 2 loops at the top of your line, at the end of your line, and then you use this bit here to feed through your middle loop. Like so. Okay. And then, all being well, you take your Dacron connector, you feed it through the loop, like so, and you pinch it off, and you can let go of that now. Now you take the line which is going down towards your float, and then you just basically pull until it tightens, like so. Now this is where it'll come apparent. Now that's not going to come off. Now you can slide that down towards the end. Now that will not come off. Okay, that's it, secured. Now this is where that additional line, that loop that I told you to tie, comes to its own. Okay, so you finish your session and you want to pack up. You take this loop and you just pull this loop, and then it loosens and takes off your rig. So what I like to do, so I like to take a piece of line and then take whatever float I fancy using. Okay, so that's a float I'm going to use for this rig. So I take the point of the line and I push it in through the eye on the float. If it would stay in, that is. Like so. So as you can see, I've got 2 small and 1 large. The reasoning for this is the 2 small will go on the stem of the float, the carbon stem, and they've dropped. And the big one will, which is this one here, that will sit at the very bottom. So the next step for us to do now is attach these. So take your line, and then all you're doing is you're feeding the line through the silicone. Okay, so there's one on. Put the second small one on. Like so. And now for the third, which, as I said before, is the largest of the 3. Okay, so you've got all 3 on now. Oh. Bear with me a minute. I always find this happens. Slips out your hand, you drop them all off. That's why it's better to do all this kind of stuff in your own leisure as opposed to just before a match. Okay, so as you can see there, lift it up a bit, you've got 3. 2 are small, 1 big one. Like I said before, there's reasoning to have 2 small, 1 big, and I will show you now when I put them onto the float. So, as you take the stem and the float, you feed your first one over, like that. Then you feed your second one, and then we're going to feed the third one on. Okay, so you've now got, as you can see there, all 3 float silicones on. So the first one you slide right up to the end of your float. Second one, slide it into the middle, and the third just stays at the end. Now the reason it stays at the end is because, go down just a smidge, if you watch the line will bend it. Okay, now if it's sat like that and you can see the lines coming off, now what will end up happening is when your rig's in the water, you'll be prone to a lot more tangles. So that's the reasoning that we slide it to the end, because it'll bend over like that, and that will stop the line tangling around the base of the stem. So that's the reasoning behind that. So, because I'm going to be fishing a banded pellet, you see, it's absolutely perfect. And that's how I do that. So that's how I like to do it. You cut the top off a Coke bottle, fill it with water, attach your rig line to the end of your tip of your Dacron connector or Stomfo, whichever you're using. Run the line all the way down to the end of your top section. Cut it off there. You then feed the float on, float rubbers, and then you attach it all together. You then give yourself 2 to 3 inches, but you're only looking this much, and that's just enough to put your float weights on. So you shot your float up and then you try it, and then if it's not that, if not your desired, you then attach a bit more, you know, put another number 10 on or another number 8 and so on, and you just work with it until you get that sitting the way you want it to. Like I said, everybody's different. I'm just showing you how I like it, because I'm going to be fishing banded pellets, so that's going to add a little bit of weight to that already. So I will know if I am now fishing dead bottom or not, because if I'm not, the weight of that pellet, the banded pellet, will sink the float, so I'll know if I'm fishing on the bottom or not. And again, like I said before, I only want about 5mm of the tip showing, just simply because we do a cold snap, and the fish, whenever it gets that cold, the fish in this particular venue, Pole Hill, they're very shy with the bite, and I want to be able to pick every bite up. So if I shot my float right down, I know I'm going to get myself something, or at least see any of the bites, because the float will disappear. That's how I do it. So what we're going to go on to now is attaching the hook length. I'll show you now how to get a much smaller loop than that. Bear with me if I do it a bit fast. Okay, so do your first loop, feed it up through, this can be a bit of a nightmare at times. You're trying to make a small loop. So I don't know if you can see that there. That little loop here is the rig line. Now it's only just gone over through the loop. So we're going to nip between my thumb here and my finger here. That. Okay, so we've nipped it. Now what we're going to do is get this loose bit here and this piece of line here, and we're going to pull them. As you can see, at the end of my thumb, the line, as I pull, gets smaller. You end up tying a very tiny loop. So what you do is you cut off the excess. And that is a final finished product, one tiny small loop. Now, attaching the hook length, like I said, I'm going to fish banded pellet. This idea, I've got a range of different hook lengths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a banded pellet. Like I said, I'm going to fish banded pellet. So I'm going to pick a banded pellet. Like so. So that's my banded pellet, or banded hook length, and that is an NGT hook, size 16. I'm just going to struggle to focus in on it. It's a knotless knot going into the band. So attaching that, you take the end of your hook, or sorry, the end of your rig. And the way I do this, the easiest way I do this, is I take the loop to loop. So what I'll do is I'll feed the hook length loop through the rig line loop. So you feed that through, and then you grip them. So now you've got the hook length gripped, okay? And then you take your hook and you feed your hook and your band through that loop of the hook length. So you're feeding it back on itself, and you end up looking like that. Okay, now between my finger and thumb on my left hand's the hook and the banded. And then all you do is you just pull it. And that forms a tight knot, as you can see. The loop's still a bit loose. And that is it. So you give it a good little tug, and that is you. Just hold that still. That's your hook length attached to your rig line. So, as you can see in the top corner up there, wibbling about, is the float. It's just up here. That's the float. You follow that line down to my first shot. Then I can get this all in. Down to my first sort of dropper, number 10 stop. Down to my second dropper, to my finger and thumb. To my second dropper. Again, number 10 stop. And to the hook. And that's how I like to shot my rigs. Now, the two bottom droppers, as you can see, it's three fingers between shots, and then to the actual bulk shot there's 4, 7, so 7 fingers difference. And that's roughly how I like to do it. So that's the distance here from main shot to first dropper, second dropper, hook length. Now, a lot of people say put the droppers onto the hook length. I'm very against that. The reason why I'm against that is because you imagine you're fishing a match and say 2 of your droppers are on your hook length. So every time you're flicking it out, rig drops down, sits. You snap up, you're not only having to put a hook length on, you're then having to put an additional 2 droppers on. Now, I know with the Stotts from Preston Innovations that I use, they're fiddly enough when you're sitting in your own house trying to do it. Never mind with the pressure and the cold hands. It might be raining, might be blowing a gale, and you're trying to sit there and put 2 droppers or 1 dropper even onto a hook length. I'm against it. I like to put it onto the main line, so chances are if you lose your main line, you're putting a brand new rig on anyway. I like to set all my rigs up that way as well, and that way I know that should it be a case of it's a heavier float, at least I know I have a bulk shot and droppers. And that's pretty much all my rigs wide. I do that. I hope that's helped. All I can really say is if there's anything you think I could improve on, or I could maybe change or do or try even, you know, leave a comment on there, and I will get back to you. If it's a question, I'll get back to you. If it's a comment on advice, then I'll take the advice on board. You know, that's the idea of this whole video making, is to, one, me show you my knowledge, and then in return hope to gain some knowledge via comments. Well, that's me. That's how I tie a rig. I'll be fishing that rig tomorrow again on the Pole Hill fisheries in Northern Ireland, but so we'll see how it plays. Until then, tight lines.